Hi, and welcome to a 0.5 episode of this series where we will introduce ourselves to what we need to set up on our systems if we want to follow the programming section of these videos. We will begin by opening a terminal, whether you're on Linux, as is this case, Ubuntu specifically, or on your MacBook, or on your Windows. It's pretty much always called some variation of terminal or command prompt. We'll open one of these windows. Don't be scared, you're not going to get hacked. And we'll need to set up a few things in order to follow with the tutorials to run some code on our own machines. First off, we'll need to install Python. This very much depends on your system and things like that. So I'll link how to install Python for different operating systems in the description. So first install Python. Then, because of how AI is, it requires a lot of parallel computation. You need to run it on your GPU. We will primarily be targeting NVIDIA setups. So if you have an NVIDIA GPU, I will provide in the description below steps how you can install the necessary NVIDIA drivers. And then once you have done that, the different operating systems have different requirements. You should be able to run a command like this, NVIDIA-SMI, and it will output something like this, which will show you your current GPU, how much power it's consuming, how much maximum power it has, how much VRAM it has currently occupied versus how much maximum VRAM it has, and some other technical information, such as like temperature and things like that. So if you can run this command, there you go. You have done most of the stuff already. You've gone through the hardest part. It's actually quite hard to install NVIDIA drivers. So if you haven't, you're in for a fun time. Once you have installed Python and your NVIDIA drivers, then we can go through the necessary setup for these next steps. We'll begin by writing mkdir or mkdir. So this is to make a directory, make a folder. You can do it through any kind of graphic interface you prefer, but it's easier to stick like this. And we will call it venv like this. I can't type. Mkdir venv. This is what we'll write. You can follow all the programming stuff that I write. You can just copy paste it from the description as well. We'll run this and then we'll have a folder venv. Now, because I already have a folder venv, it's telling me, okay, we can't do this because file already exists. But in your case, program will complete successfully. Then once we have done that, we will do Python, which is what we installed. Now, if you're on Linux or on some other systems, you might have to add 3 or even 3.12 or 3.10, depending on what kind of Python version you set up. In my case, I need to run Python 3.12. If you're on Windows, it's sufficient to just run Python. On Mac, I am not sure. So you will do Python, whatever kind of thing you need. You might have to do some trial and error with this. It really depends on what Python you installed. Then -m, this runs a module, venv again, because this sets up a virtual environment. And then we will pass the folder we want to set up the virtual environment in. In our case, this ./venv/. So that tells it there's currently a folder here called venv in our current folder that we are in. Make the virtual environment inside of it. Of course, if you called the directory something else under mkdir, for example, you called it llama, you'll need to run here like this, right? Simple enough. Once you do this, because I've already set up a virtual environment, I'm not going to rerun it. You will do source, about like this, then venv, which is the folder you, or llama, or whatever you call it, doesn't matter. Then bin for binary, and then /activate. This will load your environment, and within this environment, we will have access to a few commands. For example, if I run Python, I will have access to whatever Python I set up my virtual environment with, in my case 3.12, so we no longer need to add this extra 3.12 or whatever it is for your system. We can now just do Python, and it gives us also access to the pip or the package manager for Python, with which we'll download the necessary external libraries that we need for these tutorials. We will first download Torch. I will provide a link in the description because, again, it very much depends on what kind of operating system you are and stuff like this. You will first see it is very interactive. You will first select stable. Don't do the nightly versions unless you want to try out new stuff. Then you'll select the operating system you're currently running on. In my case, it would be Linux. For you, it might be Mac. It might be Windows. Then the package manager you're using. In your case, it should be pip, if you have followed so far. Then we'll be doing Python, as we will be writing code in Python. If you want to later on try with C++ and Java, you can download with C++ and Java by changing like this. So we'll do Python, and then depending on the CUDA version that you have, you should select here the correct version. How to know which CUDA version you have? Well, you run your NVIDIA SMI as we did before to make sure we have all the NVIDIA stuff set up correctly. And we'll take a look at the top right corner over here. In my case, I have a CUDA version 13.1. So I will go to Python, and then because I don't have 13.1, I should go down to the closest version. In my case, CUDA 13. If you have CUDA version 12.8, for example, you should get 12.6. And if you have newer CUDA versions, you can easily do CUDA 13.2. Or if you want to do strictly on CPU, you can just download the CPU version. Now, the only exception being Mac, where you can only do the default version because Mac does not have CUDA. That's a separate topic. So because I am running Linux, I'm running with pip, I'm running with Python on CUDA 13.0, I will copy this. You can also copy this entirely like this, and then just paste it in your command terminal. Then this will run the necessary installation for Torch, and you're almost ready. We need to download just 2 more packages. One of them being transformers, which we'll download with pip install transformers. And then we will do 2 equal signs because we need a very specific version of transformers, that being 5.9.0. Or you can just copy from the description below and press enter. This will download the necessary transformers library. Then you need to install 1 more, which is kernels in this case. Again, we need a very specific version, so the 2 equal signs again, 0.12.0. We press enter, this will install kernels. And then I lied, there's 1 more library that we need, and that's huggingface-hub. Again, equals 1.17.0. The reason I'm making you install, I spelled hugging face-hub. It should be hub again, but if you copy from the description, you will be good. There will be no such mistakes happening. The reason I'm making you install these very specific versions is because some of the stuff we will do kind of breaks between versions. So this version, by some trial and error, this version concoction I made is pretty stable for all of our tests. Then you can use whatever IDE you prefer. I personally am using VS Codium to write your code in. If you prefer Vim, if you prefer Nano, it really doesn't matter. I will just be using this to write our Python code in, and then through the terminal we will be running. Once we get to these steps, I will show you how to run the necessary Python code. I hope you've managed to set up everything. If you had already set up everything, then that's great. And I will see you in the next video, the very first part of our gentle introduction, where we'll delve into what tokenization is.